Hey everybody, I am honored to sit here today with Brother Horton, who's agreed to sit down and talk with me about his new book, Stanley M. Horton, Shaper of Pentecostal Theology. It's actually his biography, written by one of my professors, Dr. Olina. And Dr. Horton, thank you for sitting down with me.
Well, it's nice to be with you.
Excellent. And I guess my first question is, what is it like to have your own biography to be able to read?
Well, it was nice to be able to check on the facts.
Very true. And Dr. Olina's a really nice
Yes,
lady.
she did a lot of additional research. I gave her a lot of material and wrote quite a few things down for her. And then Dr. Ray Gannon added the last chapter where he wrote something about my theology.
Right, on Israel, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Well, it's an excellent book if you can get it. I know it's on Amazon. There you go. It's a very good read. I finished it last week.
Oh, good.
So one thing that's in the book that you had mentioned is that you were actually able to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge when it first opened. What was that like?
Oh, that was fantastic. I watched them build the Golden Gate Bridge from the campus of the University of California in Berkeley, and saw them spin the great cables in place, and then finally they had a pedestrian day the day before they opened it to auto traffic, and I paid 25 cents to walk back and forth across it.
Excellent.
And it was just it's, I guess, one of the most outstanding bridges in the world, and the most beautiful situation there at San Francisco there. And I got quite a sunburn going across too.
I think she actually did mention that in the book too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Also, kind of the book chronicles your family's experience with Pentecostalism at the
Yes.
outset. A couple of the stories, I was just wondering if you could touch on, like, some of your family were healed. Like, I know your dad had a lump on his neck that kind of
Yes.
fell off. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that was when I was about 10 years old, I think. My father developed a lump on his neck the size of a goose egg, and he went down to Angelus Temple, and a friend of his there was in the 120 room taking care of the service, and called my father up and prayed for him, and it vanished right like that, just melted away, and it was amazing. But another amazing miracle was when I was 5 years old, and my grandfather, my father's father, was operated on for prostate cancer, and they didn't have antibiotics or anything like that in those days, and they cut through the tube so that the urine flowed out through the wound, and the doctors just put a lot of padding on and sent him home to die. And I can still remember the black ambulance and how they carried him upstairs in a stretcher, and all our in-laws and outlaws came to see Grandpa. But my father's sister was married to Joseph Clark, who's pastor of the First Assembly in what is now North Hollywood, and he called us together, and I don't remember the words of his prayer, but I can still remember the Spirit of God coming upon him, and such a sense of the presence of God that it was amazing. Even as a child, I was just overwhelmed with it. Next morning, my aunt went upstairs to change the bandages, and it was all healed up except half an inch. It was perfectly clean, and he went back to work. He was 75 and lived to be 87. I don't think he would have died then, except my grandmother died, and he didn't take care of himself after that.
Okay. Yeah.
And he, but that was a real creative miracle for that to be healed up like that, and to be perfectly clean.
Right.
It was just amazing. That had to be just a tremendous evidence of the power of God.
Right.
And then I had a cousin when I was about 14. He was 6 that came down with polio. The doctors didn't recognize it at first, and after the paralysis set in, the doctor said, "Sorry, we can't help you." But his parents took him down to Angelus Temple. Amy Semple McPherson prayed for him, and he walked out of there. Was in the Navy, and well, he played football in high school and was in the Navy, and never had any more problems with that. So that was another amazing miracle. And then, but there are a lot of small things that, where the Lord just touched us, and we knew He was our healer.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And these are all chronicled in the book. You should pick it up. Also, Dr. Olina kind of talks about when you were baptized in the Holy Spirit on New Year's Day. Can you give us a little bit of a taste of what that was like?
Well, I had been seeking the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and on New Year's Eve service, I went down to the altar, and people gathered around me and started to pray for me, and then I just forgot about everybody around me, and I just felt the overwhelming presence of the Lord, and just Jesus just was so real. It just, I could just feel His hand. It was just amazing. And but I only spoke a few words in tongues, and I remember that night, and well, it was by early morning when I went to bed, but I began to think about a young evangelist, or an older evangelist, that said made some remark about young people that spoke a few words in tongues, and I wondered, well, did I get what I was supposed to get? Well, I did get it, because the initial evidence just doesn't have to be a long period of time. But I went down to the altar the next night and began to pray, and I just simply said to the Lord, if there's a freedom in this, I want it. And it was like a dam broke. The tongues just poured out, and I could hardly pray in English for a couple of weeks. It was just another amazing sense of the presence of the Holy Spirit and the presence of God. And I remember when I went back, I was still a student at the University of California then in Berkeley, and I went back, and there's one of the women who was a mother of one of our missionaries in the church there in Oakland where I was attending. She came to me and says, "Now, Stanley, God has done something wonderful, and you don't let a day go by without letting Him recreate that." And it's just something that even now when I pray in tongues, I just feel the presence of the Lord in an unusual way.
That's awesome. Well, this is part 1. We're going to do part 2, and that'll be available next week. So until then, we'll see you all later.